So, hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about my future occupation, which is a children's psychologist. So, I'll be talking about this job, the job requirements, the average salary, the where you can work as a psychologist, the profile to become a psychologist, as well as we'll cap it off with why I chose the job and the researches that I made and the influences that came with it. So, we'll start off with education because, as we all know, to have a good job in the future, you have to have a good education. To be a children's psychologist, you must have really good education. You need a PhD in psychology, specialized in children's psychology, which is extremely hard to get, meaning because you must go through over 5 years of university. Now we can go through the salary. The salary is starts off at $30,000 per year for a children's psychologist, which is extremely high considering different PhDs you can have and the base salary that you have as a psychologist. The average salary for a children's psychologist is $73,000 per year, which is also extremely high as an average for a doctor in general, because it could go as high as $100,000 for certain people who have been working the job for, like, for example, 20 years in the same space, the same spot. Sorry. Now we can move to where you can work as a children's psychologist, because we all know that you can work many jobs in different many places, but being a children's psychologist, you must find a good spot where there's of course children and people in need, such as hospitals, for example. The best example I could have is if a kid goes through a car accident and he has a PTSD remembering the events and everything that happened, and example he can't go in the car anytime soon because he always stresses and he gets flustered. So we must, as a children's psychologist, help him and to develop a system barrier, as we call, to eventually help him get through this barrier, which is to not get into a car and then have a normal life again. Another really good example of where you can work as a children's psychologist is a private clinic. Some clinics specify in certain problems, such as, for example, divorces, and a kid doesn't want to see his parents anymore, which is an extreme case for this one. Or you can also go in rehabilitation centers to help children, for example, who tried to commit suicide at a young age, which is a really tough subject to talk about for children and as parents for usual. So you can send them to this rehab center, which would help them, example, remove those evil thoughts in their head and just be a normal children and be happy as always. And also a really good one would be for delinquent young children prisons, which is, for example, a kid who's a teenager, for most examples, is doing drugs, and his parents has enough of him and just said, I don't want you doing drugs anymore. So he sends him to, which is an extreme case again, in a penitentiary for kids. But again, as a children's psychologist, you can just go help through it, talk to him with him and ask him, why do you do this and what do you gain of doing this to you, and eventually forget all this past. And we'll cap this subject off, which is school. You can work in any school as a children's psychologist because school is where kids go the most. For example, again, the kid with drugs, or a kid suddenly having bad grades and his parents are noticing it and they don't know why. So as a children's psychologist, you can come there and help the kid and help have them the best future for their life because they want to pass their courses. As a profile for a children's psychologist, you must have really specified assets such as maturity. You can't just judge people because of how they're coming through your session, because if you judge people, you're already losing the person you're trying to help, because you're already downgrading his life, because you can't just tell to people, hey, why are you there? You don't seem the good person I'm talking to. You don't look okay. You just gotta stay stable, mature, and patient with the kid. Also, you must have a really good interest for people, because if you're not interested in people, why would you talk to them? Also, you have to have a really scientific mind, meaning that you can't just listen there, talk to the person, and just wait for him to give you the answers. You must analyze everything he says, take notes, to eventually have the answer to his problems. And also, the last one is stable emotions. As a psychologist, especially a children's psychologist, must have no emotion toward the kid. Of course, you can be like a friend with him, but you must not develop any emotions, meaning that you can't just say, hey, you can come back whenever you want. It's a job. You gotta keep it as a job state of mind. So to cap it all off, I decided to choose a job because growing up as a kid, I always was the shy kid who didn't talk much to people, but always wanted to help others when they needed. Um, which is something that I've been living with for like now 17 years, almost 18. So I like to do this as a job and earn money from it. Also, I heard really good comments based on my research as well, but also as my friends who had good influence on me say, yeah, you could be a good psychologist. And it's been the same again since a really long time in my life. So I think that'd be a good experience for me to try and be a kid children's psychologist. All the statistics, stats, and were based on the source carrièresanté.info. I had many different opinions on children's psychology during my researches because I realized that you have a really developed mind and you can just sit there and talk to people, which I thought was the case for psychologists. But no, you really must take notes, like in school, as me, the kid could be the teacher, and you're just listening and helping out. Also, of course, the PhD, that was an evident one, but the salary, which goes extremely high, extremely quickly, is something really interesting to me because I thought you must work hard throughout many long years to get to the jackpot, as we call it, to get like a high salary. So that is it. Thank you.